Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at Snarf, the Great Underground Anthology. We're up to number 8 here, and I love this John Pound cover so much. I want this to be the wallpaper in my bedroom, this design here. It's his character, Flip the Bird, and I just love just every position's different. John Pound is just such a technically skillful guy. He's just really good. I love his stuff. Really like nice colors too. Very nice primary, bright colors. We start off the inside front cover. We have a great little half pager from Kim Deitch, An Old Joke. And it's, I'm not going to get into it. It's just about, supposedly it's a true story where U.S. Grant gave this guy a cigar. The guy was so honored that he kept the cigar for, like in a glass case. And 70 years later, his grandson brought out the cigar and decided to light it, and it blew up. So the joke is that U.S. Grant actually gave this guy an exploding cigar. I don't know if that's true, but I wish it was. It's a good story. Man, look at that great logo. I love that. And then this is really interesting. We just get a little strip here, A Slice of Life by Art Spiegelman and Francois Mouly. This is over a year before Raw, number 1 would come out. So kind of showing the way which Snarf is about to go in a couple of years. Because Snarf actually was probably the only underground that just kept going and became an alternative comic basically in the 80s. And had all these, newer cartoonists. But I love this cubist style here, or whatever you call it. It looks great. It's really fun. Man, this first story is so good. We start off with The Nightmares of Little Lulu by Howard Cruse. And we see an adult Little Lulu drawn very voluptuously. And she's having a nightmare. She's like, "Take your filthy hands off me, Mr. McNabber." And I guess they put these little asterisks here so they wouldn't get sued. I didn't know why he had to do that, though. It's satire. But I guess you have to change the name a little. God, just look at the logo, his lettering, his inking. Man, Howard Cruse. Except he does one thing in this. He does some pointillism for shading. And sometimes I gotta say, it does look like the person has a 5 o'clock shadow, like on her leg here. So he did the pointillism a little weird. I guess incorrectly. It shouldn't look like body hair. So she wakes up. It turns out she's married to Fatso instead of Sluggo. And I'm sorry, not Sluggo. I'm thinking of Nancy. Is Tubby. So his name's Fatso in this. And she's like, "Why do these dreams haunt me? All those green lawns and white picket fences of our childhood, and underneath them, the terror." And we see her recurring nightmare. Actually, these are memories. Mr. McNabber was the truant officer. He was in many comics of Little Lulu, always trying to nab Little Lulu because she was always playing hooky and stuff. And she lives in terror of him. And when she gets home, her parents are like, "Hey, it's time for your Tiny Tykes tonic." And he's like, "Please, mother, let me just not skip it this once. I really don't like it." And they hold her down and make her drink the tonic. It looks pretty traumatic. I love how well he captures John Stanley's style. This is just really good parody. And then we're still in this flashback sequence. And she's hiding behind Fatso. And for some reason, Fatso is dressed as Mae West. Because if you remember from the old Little Lulu comics, Tubby had this alter ego, like a pulp hero. They call him the Spider here. I can't remember if it was the Spider. So I guess he's undercover. And obviously Howard Cruse is a big fan of Little Lulu. There's so many references to the actual comics. Tubby, whenever he was this detective character, he'd always accuse Lulu's dad of being a criminal. he says, actually, I have found suspicious connections with an international drug ring and your father. McNabber hears the commotion. Oh, I'm sorry. Lulu bashes his head in with a doll. It actually cracks his skull, and we see his brains coming out here. And Mr. McNabber hears the skull crack. So Lulu hides in a garbage can. And then that little kid, her neighbor, the one Lulu's always telling crazy stories to, he always insists that Lulu tells him a story. I think his name's Melvin in the comic. And she says, you better tell me a story or I'm gonna narc on you. So she tells him a story, and it's weird because it's kind of an erotic story. And Melvin gets all excited. And Lulu walks off in disgust. So Melvin's like, or in this comic, he's Melvin. He's like, I'm gonna tell on you. I'm gonna rat you out. So Lulu goes into the boys' clubhouse to hide. And she sees her dad there. And he's selling Tiny Takes tonic to the little boys. And then McNabber comes in with Melvin, and he arrests everyone. It's part of this Tiny Takes tonic ring. I guess it's probably booze. I love this panel of them in jail. Lulu's freaking out because she's jonesing for the tonic. They're all freaking out because they can't get their fix. Mom and Pop were in there too. So then she was rehabilitated, she says. And she says, let's get married, Chubby. I'm sorry, that's his name, Chubby. It's not Fatso. Let's get married and make babies and buy a 57 station wagon. And he says, sorry, but I'm through with this stupid 50s kid strip. McNabber's got me a new job as a grown-up comic book detective. And she says, will the spider never spin again? I didn't say that, baby. And so we see the 70s, and Chubby is Spider-Man. Probably the only time you'll ever see Howard Cruse draw Spider-Man. This is some great stuff. I'm sorry if I probably didn't just do it justice at all with my crappy description. But guys, almost every panel, especially if you're a Little Lulu fan, this comic is gold. Even if you don't like Little Lulu, I think it's fun as hell. And God, Howard Cruse is just impeccable. Art and design, everything. Really great story. This makes up for a lot of barefoots, let me tell you. He's redeemed himself a little for all those barefoots. He still needs to do like 20 more stories. It's good though. Next we have Lulu Goes to Paris. This issue is very strange how every story, a lot of the stories have a connection to the previous story. So this is not about Little Lulu. It's just about this character named Lulu Bell. And she's a drug dealer in Nazi Germany. So Lulu Goes to Paris, and I'm sorry, it's by Trina Robbins. And this is a pretty good story of intrigue and stuff during World War II. It's September 1940, and this kind of lieutenant is writing to the Fuhrer. And I guess they're all it makes it seem like all the Nazi higher-ups were drug addicts. So they need Lulu Bell's services. She brings cocaine for Hans and opium for Fritz. You know, just like, even though she's a black American woman, they don't care. She's the candy man or the candy woman. So she's dating one of the chauffeurs, the Nazi chauffeurs. But it seems like she's kind of leading him on. I think I've read another one of these Lulu Bell stories. They're always really interesting. And basically in these stories, every guy wants to fuck Lulu Bell. That's kind of a subtext. So Lulu Bell at night was a chanteuse in a small cafe. I'm sorry, I didn't mention, this is Paris, France, occupied France. What the Gestapo didn't know is that there was a secret meeting with the French resistance taking place. So Lulu Bell's working for the resistance. So she's telling this guy, some of this art is really gamey. These panels are just so bad. The way this guy looks like two-dimensional. And, but then the rest of it's pretty serviceable, I think, for the story. You know, like typical Trina Robbins style. Like, this is a much better panel than this. This is terrible. So she basically goes to bed with that chauffeur again, trying to get information. She's leading him on. She gets him high, and he tells her what's up with the Nazis. He tells her the story. In the 15th century, in the French countryside, Gilles de Rais, that famous guy, he was living an orgiastic life of decadence. He was a Satanist. And he wanted to turn base metals into gold. He needed Satan's help. So Satan demanded the blood of small children. The sacrificial instrument was an ancient spear, rumored to have been the spear that pierced Christ's side while he was on the cross. You know, the legendary spear of destiny, basically. And so Hitler wants that spear. You know, just like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Hitler had this thing for the occult. He wanted to collect these objects of power. So apparently, the Nazis have found a map where Gilles de Rais' chateau is. And it indicates a hidden treasure room, so they're hopeful that that's where it is. So he's going to drive all these Nazi bigwigs to that place. So she totally finds out the plan. And then with the Spear of Destiny, the Nazis will win the war. She manipulates him into taking her too. He's like, you're ashamed to be seen with me. That's why you're not taking me. He's like, no, honey, it's okay. I'll see what I can do. Certain pals like this I love. Trina Robbins just draws these very retro cute ladies really well. You can almost picture that painted on the side of a bomber. So at first the Nazi, the chauffeur's superior is outraged. But then he says, actually, this might fit in nicely with our plans. Tell her she can come. So Lulu Bell lets the French resistance know what she's up to. And she says if we get the Spear of Destiny, we could buy freedom for a lot of political prisoners. So Lulu has a plan. So they all go up to this old castle. And Lulu Bell's hanging out with them. They find the treasure room. And they see all this treasure, plus, even more importantly, the Spear of Destiny. And the lieutenant guy, he dopes, gives some knockout juice to Lulu Bell. He says, I have some schnapps, but they're drugged. So she passes out. She wakes up naked on this altar. So she's going to be the sacrifice to Satan. And they're going to kill her with the Spear of Destiny. And then all of a sudden, this robed figure looking like death or something says, stop. How dare you offer me this unworthy non-Aryan blood? Only the purest Aryan blood will do for me. I demand for my sacrifice you, Lieutenant. And all the Nazis were like, hey, Satan gets what Satan wants. We're going to have to kill you. So, of course, the lieutenant says, fuck you, and he shoots the guy, tries to make a run for it. He gets into the limo with the limo driver is waiting outside, and he's like, step on it. And the Nazis all chase him. So, of course, this was all up the plot. That wasn't death or Satan. It was, the French resistance in a robe. I love the idea that there's a couple, like I said, there's a few stories of Lulu Bell, but she's a heroic drug dealer. Because she's a drug dealer. I mean, that's what she does. But she also gets involved in all these heroic adventures. So her buddy, the guy under the robes, is her longtime friend. Mr. Otis. He's the drug connection from Algiers. That's where she gets her drugs. So the French resistance is very happy. They have all this treasure. It'll buy a lot of guns. And it turns out that there never was a Spear of Destiny in the treasure room. Mr. Otis brought his own. to trick the Nazis. And when he flips it over, it says made in Japan. So it's just some cheap knockoff. So now we get back to the letter. That guy writing, the letter to Der Fuhrer. And he says, by the time we found out we'd been tricked, the treasure was gone. Lulu Bell fled to Algiers. And we see the guy, as he signs off on his letter, he raises the gun to his head, and he shoots himself in the head in shame. So I don't know if it really matters, but he's not really, I guess he's kind of a lieutenant. He's Obergruppenführer. Epilogue, 1946, the war is over. They're in a South American country high up in the Andes, and we see Lulu Bell chilling out with Mr. Otis. And now it looks like they're on some other adventure. They're helping this guerrilla army probably overthrow some, fascist leader. And this guy comes up and says, hey, I got something you guys might want to buy. The Spear of Destiny. It's kind of implied he's like one of those South American Nazis who, escaped the end of World War II and ran down to South America. And of course they know it's not. It's a fake Spear of Destiny. And the guy's just like, okay, I'll make it 50 pesos, 30 pesos. Pretty fun story. Next we have Steve Styles. So this is pretty fun. Joe Stalin tells me what to draw. Really like Steve Styles' art in here. Look at this crazy op art he does just for the hell of it. And kind of almost sounds like a mad thing. Red propaganda straight from Moscow. And so he's basically saying that all the underground cartoonists are communists and, getting orders straight from the Kremlin. Like some no-good-nicks. The West Coast cartoonists are controlled by Mao Zedong, though. He says the New York ones are controlled by Stalin. He shows some subliminal art. He shows a typical underground comic, and it's just like violence and titties and sex. But then if you really zoom in out of this background detail, it says, fuck NATO. Some overt commie propaganda. And, that's it for that one. So now, once again, we have this kind of echo of the previous story. Well, before the Stalin one. Because this takes place in Nazi-occupied Paris again. And this is called The Dying Swan. So, this woman, she's like the grande dame of ballet. She's just the renowned queen, the best ballerina in all of Europe. She's getting on in years. She's been around for a while. But she's still the best. The Nazis go every night whenever she performs. Everyone's in love with her. And this guy, Commander Deitch of the Nazi army, he requests the honor of Madame Alexandra's presence. And she says, send the flowers back. I don't go to parties anymore since Paris fell. She's a patriot. Did I mention guys? No, I did not. I'm sorry. This is another great story from Sharon Rodal. Sharon Rodal, I would love a collection of her stories. I have a lot of them in anthologies, but she just tells these great stories from history, and even her autobio is really interesting. So I always enjoy a Sharon Rodal story. She's not my favorite artist in the world, but she's pretty damn good. But I really like her writing. She's just really good at spinning a yarn. So apparently she has a weak heart. And the woman who kind of takes care of her, this kind of auntie, granny, whatever, she's like, oh, you must rest your heart. So she has a young protege, Alexandra. She has a young protege. I think her name's Odette. And this is her. She basically mentors her. And so the next morning, they go to rehearsals. And I guess Dietrich, since he's in charge of this occupation, he ordered the opera house, he shut off the electricity, basically to punish them. because Alexandra wouldn't, go out with him. So that night, there's getting ready for another performance. Herr Dietrich sends another letter, and she says, don't open it, send it back unopened. Herr Dietrich heads to the opera, and he says, there's other swans in that stream, Hans. If she won't fuck me, I'll get another ballerina. So he sees Odette, and realizing that it's Alexandra's protege, it makes it even more enticing. So he takes her out, buys her nice clothes, spends all this money on her, and when she comes back to the ballet, to the theater, Alexandra kind of grills her. She's like, I can't believe you're, cozying up to that Nazi. Odette has no qualms about it. She's like, I'm going to be leaving the company. Herr Dietrich wants me to come back with him to Berlin. I have no taste for poverty and suffering. So Alexandra sends a letter to Dietrich. We see Dietrich reading the letter. It says, she basically writes, oh, I fear my jealousy has reached me. And seeing you date Odette, now I realize I was wrong, and I, want you for myself. And of course, Dietrich still is kind of crazy about her because, she's renowned, world renowned. She has an ageless beauty, he says. He says, I'll make her suffer for refusing me, though. So she invites him into her parlor, and it looks like they're going to get down. And she asks Dietrich, she says, do me one favor. Don't take Odette with you to Berlin. Let her stay. And he says, no, I'm taking her. And so Alexandra pulls a gun and kills Dietrich. The Nazis find out, and they realize, though, it's the middle of the performance, and they know that if they seize her on stage, the crowd will just turn into an angry mob and tear the Nazis apart. So Alexandra dances on stage, one of her best performances ever, and she does this little thing on the ground like she's a dying swan, and she stops moving. And it turns out her heart finally gave way on her. Nice little story. This is another crazy one from Justin Green here. Zen time. And we see this guy, I don't know if that's Justin Green, talking to this, geisha girl doing the tea ceremony. And she tells him the story. Basically a Tibetan tale. So the monk, Ngogampa, decided to meditate on the color of the deity. He was basically living like a hermit, just contemplating the color of the deity. And he asks his master, he says, before I depart to the wilderness, please tell me what the color of the deity is, so I can spend the rest of my days situated on such a special spectrum. And when the master answers him, the answer is actually kind of, he can't hear it because the cook is ringing the dinner bell. So he kind of mishears. So he hears his master say, it's the color of ash after a fire. And so 20 years later, he's been just contemplating this. Ash is the color of the deity? Ash? And he realizes his life has been a gyp. He says life is a gyp. So as he lay dying, another master comes up and he asks him, what is the color of the deity? Red as a rafter in a fire. So that's what he actually said, I guess. So he was thinking about the wrong color the whole time. Very odd. It's like one of those Zen koans, And I guess the lesson is that to isolate an aspect of a deity is to lose sight of the whole of the deity. So the guy was blinded by just thinking about the color of him. Weird little strip. Now this is, so once again, this is a Steve Stiles one-pager called Piece of the Action. And this is this weird, like, Zen Cohen. But I love, for some reason, Steve Stiles draws it like some crazy science fiction strip. These robots walking around in this strange alien landscape. 2 Zen temples each had a child protege. One child going to obtain vegetables each day would meet the other on the way. And one would say, hey, where are you going? Where my feet go. This reply puzzled the kid, his protege, so he went to his teacher. The teacher says, ask him, suppose you have no feet, then where are you going? And he does. This time, the other protege says, I'm going to wherever the wind blows. And so he's very vexed, this robot. This is some great sci-fi art, actually. This is amazing. It's such a weird, I love the choice of telling the Zen koan, but for some reason, using these characters in this setting. So now he goes back to his master, and this time he says, where are you going? And he says, I'm going to the market to buy some vegetables. And it blows the robot's mind. He can't compute. Very funny, weird little comic. And next we have a love story by Joel Beck. This is a great little story. So we see this clocksmith's son, Presbyterian. He met this woman who was a wealthy Catholic merchant's daughter. He came to repair her cuckoo clock. They fell in love. They ended up in bed together. The next morning, the parents were horrified. They had to elope out the window. Her family was excommunicated from the church, driving her poor mother mad. Her father shot the clocksmith, the father of the young Romeo. And the brother of this woman got a mob together, and to track him down, they caught the wrong couple. They found a couple of pigs in a bar, and they lynched them. Then the king lynched them. So just all this tragedy, their love for each other is causing all this tragedy. And it turns out their romance isn't even that great. They constantly argue. She finally leaves him, and she's pregnant. She goes to the sanitarium to see her crazy mother. And her mother's just nuts. She goes home to see her father, and he's in bed with the maid. And so the father was overtaken with guilt, promptly set fire to the house and jumped out the window. She immediately became a whore and lived on the shady side of town. Early one morning, she had the child, and she had a profound religious conversion. And she moved to a small fishing village where she lived a nice, quiet Christian life. She tells one day when her son's older, she tells him about the truth of her past. The son's furious. He condemns his mother, vows never to see her again. 2 years later, he meets an old drunk in Singapore because he's a merchant marine now. And they realize as they start chatting that it's his father. And the father says, quick, son, take me home to your mother. So they get on a ship, and they don't find her at the house. So they run around the town hoping to find her. And she's just about to kill herself on this bridge. But they get there right in the nick of time. It's such a weird story. Like, it's all tragedy. And then there's just kind of like silly, happy ending. Even though there probably won't be any happier. They didn't like each other, living with each other. It was a very weird little fun story. Next we have Livestock Funnies. And this is another Steve Stiles. Man, his cartooning is so great. It's really fun to look at. And this is just kind of a funny gag. I'm not going to get too much into it, but just want to show you that great art. Next, we have George Erling. I love this guy. He did a lot of mini comics. Always drew funny animal stuff. Man, look at this. He just has a great style. I love his stuff. I don't have much of it, unfortunately. I just have a few pages here and there in anthologies, but I always liked his stuff, even when I was a little kid. And this is another kind of silly gag strip. But man, I love this art. Next, we have Doug Hansen, and he contributes this story, 10-Speed Tommy. I kind of like the way he draws this Benjamin dog. That's 10-Speed Tommy's dog. So 10-Speed Tommy's an orphan, as both his parents were killed in a car wreck, so he's vowed never to ride in a car again. So he's always riding a bike around. That's why they call him 10-Speed Tommy. And he's riding down the street one day, and this guy in a muscle car runs him over, breaks his bike, and injures Benjamin dog. Looks like he breaks his leg. So 10-Speed Tommy vows revenge. He rebuilds his bicycle that night. Next day, he goes to the same spot, waiting for that car to come. He's just sitting in the middle of the road. And the guy driving's all like, what does he expect me to do? I'm going to fucking run him over. And it turns out that Tommy has this, it looked like a bicycle, but it's really this completely fortified, unbreakable barrier. And I love, this panel's great. Look at this guy crashing through his windshield. The car totally wrinkles up like an accordion. And then Benjamin shows up, puts a dog suit on the guy and a leash, and takes him to where all these other dogs are hanging out. And of course, he runs from the dogs right into the street, and he gets run over by a car. I kind of like this story. I really like his cartoon. He's a very sharp cartoonist. I definitely want to read more by him. Another Steve Styles one-page gag strip. It's the Pits. And this is Steve Styles talking to us, the audience. And he's talking about comics fandom and speculating on comics worth, So he has this plan. He's going to freak out everyone at a comic convention. He's going to burn a copy of Active Comics #1 worth $1,400. It's not a real copy. He kind of made a dummy of it, counterfeit. So he goes, he lights it on fire, and all these comic nerds tear after him. The angry mob. And I guess the joke is that they managed to sell the ashes of the comic for $200. That's how valuable the comic was. And the poor guy's in the hospital. Well, Steve Styles is. Once again, another great Kim Deitch strip. This is like, kind of an autobio, but I don't think it is. But Kim Deitch writes it as if it was. He says, recently I attended a lecture on the potential of hypnosis. And 3 volunteers come up, and one of them is Kim Deitch. It seems like it totally works. He's under in just a few minutes, quote unquote under, as they say. He felt like he was walking in a long tunnel. When he opened the door, he found Waldo, his own comic character. And he says, you don't even exist. What are you doing here? And he says, I'm real enough to be in your brain. So he says, look at your brain. It's a fucking mess. Clean it up. So Kim Deitch cleans up his inner mind space. And then Waldo makes this kind of spacecraft. He says, come on, get in. So he says, where do you want to go? Kim Deitch says, I've always wanted to see if there's life in other solar systems. And so they head out. They land on this planet. It doesn't look very exotic. It just looks like Earth. And then these amazing, old-timey silent cartoon characters show up. These little mice. They're in this giant airship. Well, a small airship, giant for them, I guess. And Waldo basically leads them into a trap. All these army cats come out and say, put your hands up, Earthman. Well done, Agent Waldo. So Waldo totally betrayed him. And in the palace of the king, this looks like a Foxy Grandpa, whatever that, there's a cartoon character from the 20s and 30s, looks just like that. So they bring Kim Deitch to the king, King Boffo, and as a sacrifice. They also have some of those little mice captured. I guess the mice and the cats are constantly at war. So Waldo gets in this weird little cartoony plane, ties Kim Deitch to a rope, and flies him over the planet's surface. And then he tells him, he says, so you see, this planet is a living meat-eating organism. Our mouse farm supplies day-to-day diet, but from time to time, we got to feed it a nice, juicy human just like you. And then as he flies off, you can see it's almost like Ego the Living Planet, but way goofier. I love this panel. It's so funny. Meanwhile, back at the hypnotism lecture, and it turns out that this is just a dream. Kim Deitch isn't under some crazy hypnotic spell. He just fell asleep. And everyone in the audience is laughing at him. Oh, man, I love Kim Deitch. So there you go, guys. Another really good issue. Snarf number 8. These are really getting better. I like the fact that now they have more creators in every issue. You know that, I don't know, was it number 5 where there was like 3 cartoonists just divvying up the issue? I love that they're just having shorter comics, lots of different creators. You get a lot of different perspectives, art styles, and types of stories. So I hope you guys enjoyed looking at it with me, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.